the best national anthem in the world. It gives me goosebumps every time.
Yes, I agree.
Welcome, Major General Cardozo. Welcome, Dr. Ajay Kumar. Welcome, Rumaji. What a pleasure it is to start this Saturday evening. It's been a while that we have stood up for national anthem, and we were looking for this opportunity, I must say. Especially in the school days, it was an everyday affair, and then it became a monthly affair when we used to go for cinema halls.
Yes.
And that's what happens when we grow up. Most of the times, the best of the habits that we had in our lives, we miss out. Thanks to people like Major General Cardozo who are helping us instill this feeling of national pride every day by his stories, by his life. It's truly a pleasure and a privilege to gather here today. Ruma ma'am, over to you to take this session ahead, please.
Good evening, everyone. So nice to see everyone here. Welcome to an evening of remembering our very own war heroes, something very close to my heart. It's been 50 years since the 1971 war, when Bangladesh emerged as an independent country on the world map. Today, as we recall the bravery of our men, our chief guest, so aptly is Dr. Ajay Kumar, Secretary, Ministry of Defence, Government of India. Welcome to you. Dr. Kumar is an engineer from IIT Kanpur with an MS in Economics and a doctorate in Business Administration from the University of Minnesota, United States. He is the 39th Defense Secretary of our country. He has held several important portfolios across different ministries: communication, information technology, electronics, to name just a few. A voracious reader, a keen supporter of social causes, he will be sharing his views with us later. Thank you for being here and welcome once again. Major General Cardozo needs no introduction, and it's my privilege to welcome a soldier, a real hero who cut his leg with his Khukri. I salute you, sir.
Thank you.
He is synonymous with grit, resilience, and bravery, and is an inspiration to all of us. Commissioned into the 1st Battalion of the 5th Gorkha Rifles, he went on to take part in the 1962 Sino-Indian War, the Indo-Pak War of 1965, and the Indo-Pak War of 1971. He is a recipient of the Sena Medal and the Ati Vashisht Sena Medal. Wounded in the Battle of Sylhet in Bangladesh, he overcame the disability of losing a leg. The general went on to become the first disabled officer of the Indian Army to command an infantry battalion and a brigade. On hanging his uniform, he chose to work with an NGO in the area of disability and as vice president of the War Wounded Foundation. Consequently, he was appointed by the Government of India as the chairman of the Rehabilitation Council of India. Today, he has given full rein to his hobby of writing, and his books, Paramveer, The Sinking of Khukri, The Bravest of the Brave, The Indian Army in World War I, and many more are all widely acclaimed. He's published several graphic novels about courage, competence, sacrifice of the Indian soldier, and these books are not just eye-openers, but sources of inspiration, especially for our youth. General Cardozo has been described as the bravest of the brave, Kartuz Sahib, the brave legend, and so aptly, a Fauji born once every blue moon. And this is something that really touched my heart, General, I must say that. Your fearlessness and commitment to duty is not just legendary, but also unparalleled. And we look forward to hearing from you today. Welcome once again to the evening, and over to you, Mohit.
Thank you, Rumaji. Let me tell everyone, Rumaji is a former principal of the Naval School. Comes from a defense background. His son is serving as part of the defense services. She's presently at a very beautiful place where the services are. And thank you very much for being our patron, our mentor. She's part of a lovely veteran group, which is JVCC Book Club based out of Noida. And I see a lot of patrons coming in from and members from the book club here. After that, we will do our ceremony of launching the book. And I would request Dr. Ajay Kumar to say a few words and what's his view on the book and how you think that these stories of grit and glory do take us forward. as a nation.
Good evening, and first of all, I must thank you, Mohit and Rumaji, for having invited me here. I can say this without any hesitation that this is a rare and unparalleled privilege for me to be here and releasing this book by no one else other than Major General Cardozo, about whom one has only read, and today one has an opportunity to be part of one of his creations. As I mentioned in the mail to him, I only have this tinge of sorrow today, is that this meeting, because of COVID, is really happening on a virtual platform and denying the opportunity to actually meet him and physically see him in person, which is something I really hope that the day will come when I will get that opportunity. I must say, I mean, it's sometimes, I preside on something which is called military history, and a lot of military history is very difficult reading. It is difficult for a common man to understand. But one of the first things that is so remarkable about this book is the way it is written. It's precise in military details, and yet it is so easy to read. I mean, one can just keep on reading continuously without a break, and that's something which struck me the most when I read this book. It's really very important that we need to actually celebrate the bravery in this country. One of the things which I have always felt that somehow we have underscored on this count. If we were to think in terms of, when we talk of bravery, in our history we do talk of Maharana Rana Pratap or Shivaji, or but in recent history, in the recent past, if you were to ask a small child in school, and ma'am, you have been leading a school, how many children of today would be able to talk of the brave people who have defended this country? General Cardozo is one living example, a legend in himself. How many people would possibly, if you ask a school child who's possibly not directly associated, would know about this? And this is a tragedy. I think it is essential that our school books should talk about our heroes. We should celebrate bravery in this country. Bravery of our strong men of grit and determination. I think when you look at General Cardozo's story, it is, what do you say? I mean, it's unbelievable. Fiction could be, cannot be, even fiction would not be able to imagine the kind of things that are part of his life. And look at the determination, mind over matter. I mean, it doesn't matter what, physical, bodily pains are. If mind is strong and if you have the determination, anything is possible. What could be more inspirational than this? And if our children were to learn that this is how our elders have been, this is what they have done, what impact it can have on them. And this is something I strongly felt that about the book, if I were to talk, the beauty of each of the stories, I thought, and I have not read all the stories, but some of the stories, each story has a message. It is not merely a story of bravery, or, it is also has several management lessons for a lot of people. And as a, student of management, look at the story of INS Ghazni, or look at the story of Longewala. Each of the story actually has a management principle where clarity of vision and planning can enable you to achieve goals which would possibly not be true. While this was, this was implemented in a war situation in 71 war, which had splendid results for us. I think this has also got life lessons. When in life, when we face situations, when we are in dilemma, when there are complex situations to be overcome, these stories have tremendous amount of leadership lessons, management lessons for all the people who go through it. So I think this has been wonderful. Let me just say this, to the end, in the government today, one of my very keen interests has been what can be done to celebrate gallantry. And I say this because there's so many veterans, there's so many people who are associated with defense forces here, and I think it may be relevant to share some of the things that we are trying to do. Of course, we all know that India's own National War Memorial has only come up 2 years back. Otherwise, we had the India Gate, which was really, there, but it was more from the British days. But for post-independent India, the first memorial which talks about the martyrdom of our men who have made supreme sacrifice for the country, for independent India, was there. One of the things that we have now tried to set up is what we call as Gallantry Awards portal. What we are today aiming to have in this Gallantry Awards portal is actually a Gallantrypedia, a knowledge database of the great brave men of India, men and possibly women in the future as well, who have actually made great efforts, people who have been, whose work is actually inspirational. And I call it Gallantrypedia because it is going to be collection of information both from government's official sources, and we all know that government official sources can be extremely sanitized, censored, and very, very. In addition, we want people to contribute to these sources. We want family, friends, others, colleagues, other people who have worked with them to contribute to this, and this portal will create a collective knowledge database of this. We look forward to participation and contribution from all of this. I must also mention that we had made an appeal to the leading animation institutions of the country to come forward and ask their students to create films. And I'm happy to say that Aptech, which is one of the leading institutions, said they will create 250 animation films on the heroism of our Gallantry Awards free of cost. They're doing totally free of cost. 250 films, that's a lot of money in terms of what the creative work, the kind of, we have, another thing which we thought was very, very, if your heart slightly gets pained, we all create statues for our, heroes. And you have a lot of these statues of martyrs and people who have done great work. After the initial inauguration, you find these statues being neglected. People don't visit them. They are, not clean. We have now asked our NCC cadets that at least once a week, the local unit, the schools, as part of their contribution to social society, you should go clean up the place. One of the students reads about the hero whose statue it is, and he talks about it, and he tries to spread more information on what the hero has done. And this is something which we hope will then encourage more and more children to actually do more. I don't want to talk more. I think it's really, everyone's more keen to hear from General Cardozo about the book. But I tell you, it is a really thrilling moment, a rare moment, a moment of something which I'll treasure for a long time. So once again, extremely glad to be here, and my thanks and gratitude to all of you.
Many thanks, sir. Thanks for your kind words and inspiring us to take these initiatives ahead. Now, without much of ado, because I see I'm getting a lot of chat messages as well that people really want to convey a few messages to General Cardozo today. Many of his fans are here. I am one of the fans. 3 years ago, when I picked up first graphic book by him, that was Paramveer Chakra, and that too, it was Captain Manoj Pandey. I belong to Lucknow. My only relationship with cantonment is I used to live next to cantonment, and every day I used to pass. I used to see Hamid Chowk. I used to see that jeep. I used to see that beautiful cantonment of Lucknow, and every day I used to feel inspired. But after reading his books and of course narrating those stories to my daughter as well, and taking her to Lucknow and to show the heroes, those places, those monuments, I think it brings in a different kind of zeal. And recently, when we heard about 1971 as the book that we are here to talk about, this is a remarkable book. This has everything that you need to stay away from any of the Netflix or Amazon Prime series. This is a fascinating book. It has poetry, it has songs into it, it has management lessons into it. So General Cardozo, I will now start asking you some of the questions, but before moving ahead, you're wearing a very beautiful marigold today. And why don't you tell us something more about marigold? We have been discussing about it, but I think it should be told to everyone.
Thank you, Mohit. The marigold, which I'm wearing today, commemorates India's war dead. Most major countries in the world have a flower of remembrance for their war dead. The Commonwealth countries have the poppy. America, Russia, Australia, Canada, France have their own flowers. India has fought 5 wars since independence, and I think it is time that we had our own flower of remembrance, the marigold. What more does one need except to know that the flower, which commemorates everything from birth to death, but anything good, should also commemorate India's war dead. So it is my mission to try and make the marigold the flower of remembrance of India's war dead. And something more, we also need to think about the unknown soldier. In England, the grave of the unknown soldier lies on the floors of Westminster Abbey, and nobody can walk over that grave because there's a soldier on duty on guard, and every day flowers are placed on that tomb. In America, there is a tomb in Warminster, and in Australia, there is a statue of the unknown soldier where on the 11th minute of the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the ray of the sun lights up that statue. So we, behind India Gate, have a canopy. It's empty now. It used to, at one time, house the statue of King George V. Would it not be reasonable or something nice to put the unknown soldier between India Gate and the National War Memorial as a reminder that there are soldiers who get awards and there are soldiers whose brave deeds are not seen but need to be honored. And it was my request or my dream that one day we will have the statue of the unknown soldier under that canopy.
Fantastic. And so I have come to know, and I saw the video as well, that you have written a beautiful poem on Marigold. Why don't you narrate that and recite that poem for us?
Thank you. I will have to read it. I wrote it a long time ago. I'll recite it for you slowly so that the words are understood and the theme is understood. The marigold. Our marigold, this simple flower, in many ways, it meets the hour of valiant soldiers who in combat die and to their maker skywards fly. From ancient times, this favorite bloom has commemorated womb to tomb, of life and death in equal measure, and other moments we all treasure. But in time of war, this flower sheds its fragrant petals to mourn her dead. For those who fought for you and me and sacrificed their destiny. So pause a moment, all who care, and offer up in silent prayer this sacred flower for a soldier's death to remember, lest we all forget.
Wow. From bloom to tomb, sir. I think you've just covered the full circle. That's life, I guess. Very beautifully written. There's so many other poems that General Cardozo have penned down. They are so sensible, they are so beautiful, and as one of our efforts to bring out the literature and also beyond books, we would love to have them recited, and one of our patrons and partners, Puneet Panchi, is going to recite them. The work is underway and we would love to send it to you very soon, and to all the people who have joined in. Dr. Ajay, in case you would like to start with any question that you have come across in the book and you would like to ask.
Let me just ask one question, General Cardozo. You have been able to give a perspective of both the Indian Army, and I mean, it is, there are a lot of records that are available both from the military history as also outside, but also a very good perspective of what the Pakistanis were doing, what their thinking was, what their plan was. I was curious, are these records available in public domain, or are these based on some research, or how did you get the perspective from the Pakistani side?
The perspective for the Pakistani side is based on my own perceptions of what must have happened based on available material. For instance, when Yahya Khan had his conference before the Battle of Boira, I was not there. But we knew from newspaper reports, we knew from what people were saying, what he himself was saying, that this is what must have happened. And also, if you read the books of General Jacob, he's written 2 books. These books give a good insight because he personally interviewed the prisoners of war, because he was at that time the Chief of Staff of Eastern Command. And he was able to see for himself, to know for himself what motivated them, what was their thinking. And he himself, I think, followed what General Slim used to do. General Slim, in his book about the Battle of Burma, From Defeat into Victory, he talks about his habit of keeping the picture of his opponent opposite him, to think, to be able to think exactly what was going on in his mind. Now that you can't get from a picture, but he made it a point to study his strategy, his tactics, his training, how he fought various battles. And putting all this together, he would think about, if I do this, what is he likely to do? And therefore, he planned every battle and every one of them was successful. And from defeat, it was turned into victory. This is something I think that the leadership, whether it is management, whether it is the Army, Navy, Air Force, whether it is the political leadership, we need to know what China is thinking now. What is their philosophy of war based on Sun Tzu, on Mao Zedong, and the present chap, Xi Jinping? What are they thinking? What is their vision? How will we react to their various moves? Have we done that? If not, it is never too late. Let us at least start now and keep thinking of what is the enemy thinking all this time. There is a slogan in the OTA which says, The enemy is planning to kill you. What are you doing about it? I think I hope I've been able to answer your question, Dr. Ajay.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to also say, each of the story potentially has, it's a movie, which you read this story and you feel you actually can visualize a movie being created on it. And I would, love, if you were to, encourage some of our producers. They are so thrilling stories, and this would be, it would be a medium by which some of more authentic work rather than kind of the fictional work which sometimes we see in Bollywood. More authentic war movies based on our own internal, experiences could be made. That would be really wonderful.
Yes, Dr. Ajay, that is my dream also.
And in fact, that's where the mid chapter, which is the long shot at Longewala, and you just read it and you will recall all the scenes from Border. You will have Sunny Paji in it, you will have everything from Sunil Shetty, and you will recall each and every moment from that movie, I guess. But that's the mid chapter. There's so many other chapters to that as well. So very rightly said.
The gates of Ratoke. I mean, this is a story which has got emotion, it's got drama, it's got leadership, it's got strategy, it's everything. It's suspense, surprise. So I mean, point is, each of these stories has so much rich content in it. I mean, that's what is so engrossing and so captivating in this whole book.
True. And you rightly said, sir, each and every, in fact, the characters as well. So we will come back to some of the characters. But before that, we will talk about a sound which is so motivating, like a war cry. Recently, it has been something related to Josh, and it has been various kind of war cries. And today, General Cardozo and I had a query to him that is it related to India that every regiment, every team has a different war cry, because we are talking about Ayo Gor Khali, Jai Mahakali, Ayo Gor Khali. And I'm very keen to know something about it, sir. Is it very particular to one specific regiment, the unit, or this is separate for everyone? Because I can read some of the war cries in this book, but Ayo Gor Khali is like again and again. And I would also like to show, before you answer, sir, a quick slide to all of our audience who have joined in here today. So Jai Mahakali, Ayo Gor Khali, that's what you see. There is, while General Cardozo will tell us more about it, there's a very heart-touchy scene. We all would have gone in our newspapers. It was in the news, Colonel Rai's daughter, before paying tribute to the departed father. She cried out loud, and when I was looking at all the entire story, I couldn't stop crying. Imagine the power that then still these sounds, these words, that it is, as rightly said by General Cardozo, it is bloom to tomb. They are there. So, sir, please enlighten us more on this war cry, please.
Thank you, Mohit. Ayo Gor Khali basically means the Gurkhas have come. Watch out. And we have come here to decimate you. And this is what all Gurkha regiments have, more or less the same part of this war cry. Ayo Gor Khali, Ayo Mahakali Gor Khali, whatever. Ayo Gor Khali, we have come. The game is up. Your number is up. Either you surrender or give up. So every regiment has its own war cry. I wonder if people, I'll just take a moment to talk about the Jats. I don't know exactly what their war cry is. I did know it at one time, but it was led by an Anglo-Indian officer, Lieutenant Colonel Desmond Haig. He was given the impossible task of capturing Dogarai across the Ichogir Canal, and he captured it at great cost, but he could not be linked up, and he was recalled. And then when the brigade had enough strength to again capture Dogarai, His Subedar Major came to him and said, "Sir, it is a dishonor to the regiment that we have been asked to withdraw. We must be in the vanguard to capture Dograi again." And Haid addressed his troops and said, "Many have died, many have got wounded, but we have been given the honor to capture Dograi again. And many more will die, and many more will be wounded. But I will be there leading you. And if I die, I want my body to be carried to Dograi, because that is where I want to be tomorrow morning." And then he said, "Where will we be tomorrow morning?" And the whole battalion wrote, "In Dograi." So this is what the spirit of the army is. We in the army are expendable, but the country and its honor is not. So the war cry symbolizes and signifies what the morale and what the belief of the regiment and its soldiers is all about. Regimental spirit. We fight not only for India, but we fight for the honor of our regiments. And the war cry symbolizes the honor of the regiment. Can I add a little more?
Yeah.
As far as Ayo Gorkhali is concerned, my battalion, the 4th Battalion, the 5th Gurkha Rifles, we did not have artillery to support our attack in a place called Atgram. So we launched the last Khukri attack in modern military history. Now, perhaps everybody doesn't know what a Khukri looks like. So I brought one here to show you. It's not a battle Khukri. The blade is 10 inches. You can note that it is curved, and there is a little notch over here which prevents the blood from making the handle slippery. In the Battle of Atgram, we decapitated 32 Pakistani soldiers, and after that, they did not have the guts to stand up against us in the future battles of Ghazipur and Sylhet. So, thereafter, the war cry of Ayo Gorkhali struck terror into the hearts of the Pakistanis. And at Sylhet, they didn't have the guts to come to us in close quarter battle. So, the war cry symbolizes the spirit of a regiment.
So I think, sir, from How's the Josh now, for me, it's Ayo Gorkhali. That's how we will meet with a marigold in my hand. And I will take this further, sir. So while we have discussed about the war cry, sir, let me take the entire group that has gathered here today to take the inspiration ahead. There's one character without mentioning of whom I think this book is incomplete. And for me, it has actually shaken me totally. That's Colonel Suresh Gupta. And especially during a time when he was stuck with a tragedy which is inconsolable, and also he was managing the front. His story, I think, is to be told to the world today. And so, while we have dozens of people who have joined here today, I would recommend everyone to pick up this book and definitely read that entire chapter. That's what Dr. Ajay recently mentioned. That chapter has a story of courage. It has adversity questioned. It has resilience into it. And that's what is required, especially in these times also, when for small things we are making a lot of hue and cry. But there is someone who actually sacrificed everything, who lost everything, but still stood very high. So General Cardozo, please tell us about Colonel Suresh Gupta and the entire story around it.
Yes, as you mentioned, after he lost his two sons in the tragic accident, some of the officers felt that maybe because of his personal tragedy, he should not be asked to be given the task to capture Sejra. And Colonel Gupta took this as an affront, and he said, "My personal tragedy has got nothing to do with my discipline and my competence as a CO of the 1st Battalion, the 5th Gurkha Rifles." But what happened, we don't have too much time to go into the details of the story. But briefly, what happened was that he was tasked to capture a place called Sejra. Sejra was a salient which came into India and was used by the Pakistan in 65 to enter into our territory. And they were planning to use this in 1971 to launch their armor against DBN, their Darabamanana. But so we decided to eliminate Sejra. A plan had been made, which had been approved by the brigade. As you know, a brigade consists of 3 battalions, a division which consists of 3 brigades, a corps which consists of 3 divisions. So the plan had been approved right up to the army commander. But during the period between the plan being implemented and the plan being made, number of recce's were done by the supporting arms, by the other infantry battalions, and the enemy came to know that we were going to attack on a particular approach. And they started laying additional mines, barbed wire, preparing strong defenses, digging a deep ditch. So the commanding officer knew that if he went according to this plan, firstly, the plan would not succeed, and secondly, his battalion would be written off. So a few days before the war, he had the guts to stand up to the military hierarchy and say, sir, I am sorry, this plan will not work. So they were taken aback. They said, we have planned this for so many months, you've gone into so much detail, it has been approved right up to the army commander. How can you say at this moment, 2 or 3 days before the war, that this plan will not work? He said, sir, flexibility is also a principle which ought to be a principle of war. It is better to use a plan which will work than a plan which is not likely to succeed. Let me do it my way. There's also a song, My Way, by Frank Sinatra. So, yes, he said, let me do it. And they said, what is that? He said, I will attack across the river. And he took the lesson from Alexander's battle with Porus,
Yes.
where he left the fires burning and attacked across the river. Similarly, Colonel Gupta kept the plan intact, the artillery plan intact, everything else intact, but attacked on his own across the river, took the enemy by surprise. Of course, the corps commander, div commander, everybody was very upset with him. But he said, sir, do you want my dead body in the bodies of my men, or do you want me to capture the objective? Let me do it my way, and you can have breakfast with me on the objective after it's captured at 11 o'clock tomorrow. The good thing about the army is that they listen. They listened to him and said, all right, Colonel Gupta, you bloody well make it succeed. Sorry for the language. But he said, right, sir, see you tomorrow morning at Sejra. And he captured the objective, and the Newsweek, an American magazine, gave a photograph of the trousers of the CO of the Pakistani battalion who ran away. So we captured Sejra. Of course, we had casualties, but much less than what would have happened. So it brings out many lessons, as already been said by Dr. Ajay and by Mohit. Yes, there are management lessons, there are leadership lessons, there are values, there are principles, which if we follow, not only in war, but in our daily lives, we are going to succeed.
I think to everyone who has ordered the book or planned to order the book and read the book, this is one story I would love to call you back for a discussion on this entire chapter. Dr. Ajay, you have some points to add to that, I guess.
You know, I think if you were to ask me, this is one story which is so rich in every sense. And the most, remarkable point which I want to say, the description is such, you actually feel that you're sitting inside a actual meeting. So I think the point which I made earlier, there is so much to learn even for a lot of people who don't understand how the government system functions. There is another story about that bombing of Karachi, there are multiple layers within the government, and these layers have their own, let me say, their own perspective of looking at things based on which decisions are taken. There will be the political perspective, there will be the bureaucratic perspective, there would be resource constraint, there would be the perspective of the forces, and it is in different layers that decision making gets taken. But talking of this particular story and the experience of Colonel Gupta, you really feel you're part of that whole process while it is happening, and that's where I think the power of this book lies. It makes you feel you are actually living that life or living that incident as it unfolded.
Thank you, sir. And there's one story which is which deserves to be out to everyone. It's about a twist of a wrong broadcast which was done by BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, that made actually Pak surrender. And nobody could have imagined that a small mistake in communication can actually do so much, and it actually favored 1:20, as has been mentioned by General Cardozo. And imagine, the way I'm telling you, you can only feel when you read the story. At one point of time, our units were just 1/20th of what the Pakistanis had surrounded us. But then there was some communication that actually went wrong as a miscommunication, which actually supported us. And also because of the act of bravery and courage combined with the luck. And that's what General Cardozo has mentioned in many of the quotes, that many times is also the matter of the luck and God. And he has also mentioned about the praying wives at home. So if there's a wife praying at home during a war time, you can very well understand a soldier has just missed a bullet. So I think, sir, someone was actually praying very hard that time when we were actually surrounded in that war. So tell us about this BBC story, please.
Thank you. It's a long story. I'll cut it short. After the battles of Atkaram and Ghazipur, we had entered the war with 18 officers. After these two battles, we had lost 3 officers killed, 4 officers wounded. And so there were now only 11 officers left. And there were many men who also killed and wounded. And the battalion had been given time to recuperate and reorganize. But the corps commander, General Sagat Singh, Lieutenant General Sagat Singh, was a man in a hurry. He wanted to be the first in Dhaka. And he said that the brigade, now I mentioned earlier, a brigade consists of 3 battalions, so it's about 3,000 men. And we were an understrength battalion of just 384 because of the casualties we had suffered at these 2 earlier battles and because the Leave parties had not joined. But he told us, when he told the brigade commander, I want Sylhet to be captured in India's first heli-borne operation. So he said, sir, I want the Gurkhas to do it. So he said, sir, I've given the Gurkhas a break of 4 days to reorganize. He said, no, tell them to go now. I know the Gurkhas, they are the ones who can do it. And so, the CO, in the army, you can protest up to a point. After that, orders are orders, and that's that. And the CO, Lieutenant Colonel Arun Bhimrao Harolikar, a very brave, courageous, and competent officer. He did do what he was told, and we launched that attack because we were told that the brigade which is holding Sylhet has moved to Dhaka. There's nobody in Sylhet except about 200 untrained Razakars. So go ahead and capture it. So we went in on the 7th of December in this first heli-borne operation. And I joined them from Staff College at 3 o'clock in the morning of the 8th of December in the last wave that entered Sylhet. But what we did not know, thank goodness, is that the brigade which is holding Sylhet had not moved to Dhaka. So there were 3,000 men already there. Further, another brigade, 313 Pakistani Brigade, had reinforced Sylhet. So there were 6,000. In addition, there was the garrison of Sylhet, another 2,000. We didn't know that. We were told that you will be linked up and reinforced within 48 hours, because the teaching in military schools of instruction is that unless a paradropped or a heliborne landed battalion is reinforced within 48 hours, it will disintegrate due to lack of supplies, lack of ammunition, heavy casualties. But we were not linked up for 9 days and 9 nights. What helped us was that at that time, the government of India did a very good thing. It allowed foreign war correspondents to accompany our troops into battle. So the world was getting unbiased reportage on the war. Now, one of these was the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, which was known for its credibility and authenticity in reporting. But the correspondent made a mistake. He said, instead of saying a battalion of Gurkhas has landed, he said a brigade of Gurkhas has landed. So we were listening, and so were the Pakistanis. So we pretended to be a brigade. That involved a risk because it meant keeping the companies further apart, low linkage between the arcs of fire, gaps in the defenses. But the CO, a brave officer, Colonel Harolekar, took that risk. And when on the 15th of December, the surrender took place, the Pakistanis surrendered to us. They were shocked beyond belief to know that we were an understrength battalion of just 352, because by that time we were reduced to a strength of 352. And we got the shock of our lives when 3 brigadiers, 2 full colonels, 173 officers, 290 JCOs, and 7,000 to 8,000 troops surrendered to us. It only proves what Sam Manekshaw said: do what you love what you do, never be afraid, and never give up.
I think so. That's what happens to courageous people. That's exactly what reflects. When you have courage, everything as an intent falls back to you. But this is a moment, sir, I think we must show this picture. We have seen it so many times, but this is the time to actually just have a look at this picture. And please do explain, because in the book you have explained the reporter, you have actually explained the person leaning, you have actually explained everyone, every name. So tell us something about this remarkable scene. This is a moment to capture.
Yeah, it is General Niazi, who was the army commander of all Pakistani forces in East Pakistan. He's signing the surrender document, and next to him is General Ajit Singh Arora, General Arora. Behind him is General Jacob and General Sagat. I think that's Air Marshal Diwan and Admiral Krishnan. So this is a historic picture which is on the walls of the library of the USI, and the copy of the surrender document is also there. And also, for your information, the map on which General Jacob planned the strategy for the war in East Pakistan is also on the walls of the USI library. On it is given the formations and units of both the Pakistani army in red and the Indian army in blue. And if you look at it, you can see how the battle moved from the 4th of December to the 16th of December when the surrender took place.
Wow. this is actually one of the rarest of the moments to be described, and you have mentioned it so beautifully. Dr. Ajay, any of your observations, anything that?
Yeah, I know, and this picture is so powerful, and if you were to look at it closely, so we have a very beautiful reproduction of this picture in Ministry of Defense. It's actually a painting, which is very aptly brings out, if you look at the faces of the people who are involved, they tell a story of their own. Now, I just wanted to, say that, in your book, you mentioned about General Eric Vaz saying that, for the 71 war, he says, and I'm reading from your book, 2 factors favored our actions during this war.
Correct.
God and good luck. And I think what you just related and what the whole story of BBC is, is the hand of God somewhere, who helped us make this huge transition.
That's right, Dr. Ajay. India is a very spiritual country. And irrespective of religion, I think we all believe that there is a superpower, there is a God who blesses us. And I would like to say that there is one word which epitomizes the philosophy of the Indian Army, and that word is love. Now, people will say, "Ye Fauji log, what do they know about love?" But it is what Jesus Christ has said. No greater love has a man than he gives up his life for a friend. And that is what the Indian Army is all about. We love our country, and our country means the people of India. And we are prepared to give our lives to the people of India, for the honor of India, for the honor of the regiment, and for the life we live. There is no life which can compare, in my opinion, to a life in the defense forces. And I hope the young people of today are listening, and that they also think about joining the defense forces. So, yes, love is the word which epitomizes the Indian Army.
Very well said.
Yeah, he talked about General Eric Vaz saying, God and good luck was with us. So I talked about God, but good luck was also with us. Because if you read the story, and of course, Dr. Ajay was asking me, how did I come to know what was going on in the Pakistani mind? There was an interview with the armored regimental commander who fought at Longewala, and he gives a description of exactly what was going on in the Pakistani mind. So, not only God, but good luck was also with us, not only at Longewala, but in many other battles as well, and that includes Sylhet and Sejra.
Also, the INS Vikrant story is a remarkable one that really shows, and also one very beautiful story which is about the usage of the resources, which was a vehicle actually converted into a combat vehicle, a defensive vehicle, which was actually thought to be an offensive. And the Russians actually praised us like anything. General Cardozo will not discuss that story because I'm just building the climax for everyone. Someone just asked, how can we actually contribute? I think the first contribution is to all the college and the student people who have joined in today. Buy the book, share amongst each other, discuss these stories, and so many other. Today we have with Colonel Virendra Thapar here with us. We made his book as our annual book for City Book Leaders. What a story of Captain Thapar. It's a remarkable book in itself. Today we have Prabal Das with us. He has written a story about 1967 Watershed. And we have so many of those remarkable authors who have given so much in terms of the information about our war stories, which very recently were not known to us. General Cardozo, there is a very interesting question that a friend of ours has asked from Banaras, which I thought we'll keep it for the last because that's a common question that we have to ask you. We'll keep it as per our time limits as well. Dr. Ajay has been kind enough to be here despite being a Saturday evening, and for them Saturday, Sunday is nothing. I'm sure the ministries are working 24/7. One question, sir, out of all the incidences that you would have come through your interactions with everyone in the forces. One incident that you think has the biggest lesson for all of us that we can draw even after 50 years of the war? Any lesson that you would like to?
The most important lesson that we learned from the 1971 war and also the earlier wars and the counterinsurgency and counter-terrorist operations which are going on today. And that is, do what is right, irrespective of the consequences, and you will never be wrong. And this applies to all who are listening, to the leaders of this country, the politician and the bureaucracy. If we do what is right and put country first, we can never be wrong. To parents of children, that is where leadership and begins. The values of truth, the values of honesty, respect your superiors, never do anything which my mother, when I was leaving for Bangladesh, told me, for the NDA, told me, son, never do anything for which I will have to hang my head in shame. So mothers, and this is where I'd like to say, it is the girl child which is most important person in this country, because she becomes a wife, she becomes a mother, she becomes a grandmother, and most teachers are women. And if the mother and the father imbibe the right qualities in their children and the right habits, because habits die hard. If you learn bad habits, then you will never succeed. But if you learn good habits, so values, behavior, attitude, the right behavior, right attitude starts at home. So parents are important. Do what is right, irrespective of the consequences. That was what my parents taught me. And then school teachers, do what is right, irrespective of the consequences. The same thing. Children to be taught, do not lie, do not cheat, do not copy, do not steal, respect yourself, respect others. So first, parents, teachers, school and college, then the army itself, the young officer who reads these stories will learn from the experience and the story of Suresh Gupta, and also from the story, good is better than best. Colonel Murthy, who said, I don't need to be told how to do my duty. And General Narahari, when he attacked the Chinese at Sungurangchu, when he was asked, you didn't take our permission from Eastern Command, said, I don't need to be told to do my duty, and that is to defend every inch of our motherland. So, values at every level, military, political, bureaucratic, school children. And for school children, I would like to say, you have only one life to live. Live it to the full. Life is an adventure, or it is nothing. It is not the years in your life that matter. It is the life in those years. Make that count. Make sure that you have, when the time comes to retire, and like me, you have no regrets. Do what is right, irrespective of the consequences, is what I think we can learn from this book.
So true, sir. And while you, sorry, yeah.
Never be afraid, and never give up.
And that's a mantra, sir. I will take that as a mantra. And while you mention about parenting and schooling, we have Rumaji and the entire JVCC book club who's here today. And they are exceptionally inspiring, every one of them. We have Commodore Ashok Dua, we have Vice Admiral Muralidharan who has joined us today. We have your son and your wife also joining this session. And also today we have Colonel Virendra Thapar with us. And while you mentioned about parenting, and I would like to mention this to everyone, and we have a question as well, possibly she's a teacher or a mother, Gayatri, she's asking, why should I actually read history? My only suggestion is actually pick up this book, which is Vijayant at Kargil. And for those closing remarks, I would request our honorable guest, Colonel Virendra Thapar, to mention of what parenting actually he did that.
Well, first of all, I'd like to pay my utmost respect to General Cardozo, whom I've known since 1962. And I was adjoining the place in Bangladesh where he was actually putting in the attack. So he's a hero in every sense of the word. And more than a hero, he's a good Indian, which everyone should emulate. I think that is the... Regarding the last points which he said, you know, Vijayant also wrote in his letter, he asked everybody to live life king size. So really speaking, what a little point I want to make is, many times people come and console me that your son was so young when he went away. And then I have now come to conclude this way, that life is never measured in terms of its length, how long you have lived. It is measured in terms of the intensity with how you have lived it. So it's no point being a sick man and living 80, 90, 100 years. But it's good to be like Bhagat Singh or like all these young men at Kargil who wanted to do something for the country. And that brings me to the point, what the General has just touched upon, and that is value system. Now, we have no other way to revive our country the way we want, we can talk, unless we revive its values. I just want to narrate a small incident. My mother used to tell me only one story. He said, look, remember one thing, that a green tree can never have dry roots, and a dry tree cannot have green roots. So therefore, roots are very important, and that is where the value comes in, value system comes in. And in that value system, parents imbibe those value systems, honesty, loyalty, pride for the country, above all. And these are things that seem to be somewhat diluted gradually. Possibly we started measuring our greatness in terms of whether we have good properties, whether we have such like things, you know. These are all worldly things. And more pertinent is the values that we leave to the next generation. In this, may I just suggest that the role of the parents, the teachers with whom the child spends maximum time of his life, the preachers and the leaders, everybody comes in. I mean, unless they set a kind of a example for the rest of the people to follow, I think we would be again climbing the wrong tree. And while General gave an example, very good example of the Jat Battalion, 3 Jat, Desmond Haig, I would like to give the example of one small example from the Battle of Toroling, in which there was a JCO, and when the GOC or the brigade commander told them that we have to get Toroling because it has defied all the attacks so far. Then he said, Saab, subah ki chai hum Toroling pe piyenge. And then chai of course was there, but that JCO was shot at that night and he couldn't participate in the team. So these are small examples. The army doesn't lack, has not in any way diminished in its spirit. If at all, people like General Cardozo have helped us to flip up our urge to do something for the country, more for the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Thapar. Many thanks. In fact, we have decided, Dr. Ajay, that every month at least we will do one discussion on a book which is related to war stories, to our heroes. In fact, this month itself, because this is our third year of being in existence, this 15th, we have Major General Anand Saxena here with us today. We are hosting his book, which is yet again a very remarkable book on the management lessons. And General Cardozo also mentioned that how do you measure success? So he has actually written about the management lessons of how do you stay happy and stay successful. Any parting thoughts, Dr. Ajay, and we'll call it off for this lovely evening.
It's been an amazing evening, and listening to General Cardozo and Thapar, I think, but General Cardozo, even, listening to him, you can really, it gives clear picture of where the, how the book is so flowing, I must say that I enjoyed everything that you said, General Cardozo, and I'm not saying this because this book release is absolutely a treat to be part of this event, to have heard you here, and my determination to come and see you one of these days is even more stronger. I just want to, I resonate with everything you said, and particularly the point which you make as country first, India first. No matter what you're doing, you could be doing agriculture, you could be doing business, you could be fighting on the front. India first. I think that is what we need to build in our children, or build in the next generation. I think stories like this, books like these, lessons like this, and above all, people like General Cardozo, I think they are true inspiration for our next generation. So thank you very much for this book. I would like to say thank you, Mohit, and your, for organizing this interaction. And I must also thank you because, like I said, it's been my endeavor, in the ministry to start this effort on celebration from government side, whatever it is possible. But I think this effort to do at least one story per month, I think one book, one per month, I think this is a wonderful initiative, and I would be happy to support it any way which I can. Thank you very much, and thank you again.
And sir, before we leave, sir, we have a ceremony to perform today, which cannot end without the war cry. So I have opened up everyone's mic. Why don't you all open up and say Aayo Gorkhali together, because how's the Josh is passe now. Now the byes and the goodbyes are old. What is left is now 3, 2, 1, and together we'll say Aayo Gorkhali.
Aayo Gorkhali.
Have a great life. Take care. Enjoy and do read this book. It's a must read for everyone. Aayo Gorkhali yet again. Bye-bye.